This is a 2018 Rolls-Royce Phantom, and it's a car that needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce it anyway. This is the most luxurious car on sale right now, probably the most luxurious car ever made. The sticker price on this one is $544,000. Today, I'm going to take you on a tour of it. I've borrowed this brand new Phantom from O'Gara Coach here in La Jolla, California, which is an excellent dealership that sells Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce, and Bentley. Now, when they reached out to me and asked if I wanted to come film a video, my first question was, do you have the new Phantom? And they did, so now I'm going to show it to you. First, a quick overview. Now, the original Phantom came out for the 2004 model year, and Rolls-Royce offered it in several versions. There was a sedan, a coupe, a convertible, and an extended wheelbase model. This is the brand new redesigned 2018 Phantom, and even though it looks fairly similar to its predecessor, it has a lot of new features and luxury equipment and cool gadgets, which I'll show you. Under the hood is a 6.75-liter twin-turbo V12 with 563 horsepower and 664 pound-feet of torque. So what's so cool about the Phantom? Oh, so much. Today I'm going to take you on a tour of it. I'm going to show you the many quirks and features of the world's most luxurious car. Then I'm going to drive it, and then I'm going to give it a Doug score. And for more of my thoughts on the Phantom, click the link below to visit autotrader.com/oversteer, where I've also compiled a list of the cheapest used Rolls-Royce models currently listed for sale on AutoTrader. Now, I'm going to cover all of the Phantom's crazy quirks and features, just like I always do, but I'm going to start with some of the more unusual ones, and that means starting with the window sticker. Now, like I said before, the retail price of this car is $544,200, which is crazy, but the craziest thing is the base price is $450,000, meaning this car has $100,000 just in options. So what exactly are those options? Well, we'll start with the Phantom package, which is a $35,000 option. In other words, you could buy a base Audi A4, or you could just get a package for your Rolls-Royce Phantom. So what exactly is in a $35,000 option package? Well, it includes a lot of the regular Rolls-Royce luxury craziness, like, for example, the rear theater configuration, the rear picnic tables. I'll show you those in a little while. The Rolls-Royce monogram on the seats, the 22-inch forged alloy wheels, but it also includes the driver assistance systems, and that includes the craziest car camera you will ever see. Now, this car has a regular backup camera. It also has a 360-degree top-down view camera, and that in itself is pretty cool, but check this out. Take a look around this parking lot. You see how there's a Bentley Arnage back there and a green Lamborghini? Okay, now I'm going to go into the camera system and watch this. I'm moving the camera around the car, and you see back there, there's that green Lamborghini and the Bentley. This camera basically shows from the outside of the car, looking at the car, what is around you. It is unbelievable. Now, there was a similar system in the BMW M760i I reviewed, because BMW owns Rolls-Royce, and so they're just sharing the technology. But whether you get it in a BMW or a Rolls, it doesn't matter. It is clearly the best camera system in the car industry, and check this out. You see how the Phantom in that little around the car view is black? That's because the Phantom in that camera angle is color-coded to the Phantom you have. You get a white one, your Phantom turns white in your in-car camera system. You get a red one and it's red. I swear, that is truly amazing. And speaking of the exterior color, it's called Infinity Black, and according to the window sticker, it costs $11,200. Seriously, $11,200 extra for the color of this car. And speaking of crazy expensive options, we must now discuss the gallery. This car, you see, does not have a dashboard. Instead, it has a gallery. Above the glove box, there is a little glass window piece, and it looks at, well, whatever you want. You can customize it. You can commission your favorite artist to make a painting and stick it in your gallery, and Rolls-Royce will do it for you. This particular car has this folded leather that Rolls-Royce calls regatta sails in black. It's supposed to resemble the sails of a sailboat. And for that, they charge you $10,350 just for the folded leather. Obviously, if you commissioned your own artwork for your gallery, it would cost a little bit more. So in your car, you have a dashboard. In the Phantom, you have a gallery. Oh, and speaking of the gallery, in the gallery, you might notice that there is a clock. Well, not only is it a clock, it is a very nice clock. In fact, I suspect it is a very, very nice clock because according to the window sticker, that clock costs $6,575. Craigslist Miata or Rolls-Royce gallery clock? Next up among the Phantom's crazy features, you can't talk about Rolls-Royce without talking about its logo, which Rolls-Royce refers to as the Spirit of Ecstasy. It appears to be a woman with wings. Anyway, the Spirit of Ecstasy is of course kind of desirable, and that could make it attractive to thieves. So Rolls-Royce allows you to lower your Spirit of Ecstasy if, for example, you're driving through a bad neighborhood and you're worried someone might steal it. Just go into the infotainment system, lower the Spirit of Ecstasy, and then, well, the Spirit of Ecstasy automatically lowers so no one can take it. When you're back in your nice gated community, you can raise your Spirit of Ecstasy again automatically from inside, and it pops back up. And then we move on to the wheels. Now, to a plebeian such as yourself, these might look like regular everyday wheels, but they aren't. They have one very special characteristic, namely the RR in the middle, Rolls-Royce's logo, is weighted. So as you drive down the road, it always stays facing up, which means there's absolutely no confusion about what vehicle you're piloting. Next, we move on to the doors. Now, from a quick glance, they don't look all that unusual, but check this out. They're rear hinged. So your chauffeur opens them all the way, and then you can step out. Now, other than the fact that they're rear hinged, they definitely don't look all that interesting, right? Wrong. Haha. See ya! Yes, that's right. The doors close automatically. Get inside your Phantom, push a little button inside next to the window marked door, and then the door closes for you. So you, the chauffeured passenger, don't have to expend your valuable energy closing a car door. And check this out. I'm on the outside of the car. The door closes automatically out here too. You just tap the door handle and then the door electronically swings closed, so you don't have to put in any work to closing automotive doors, an activity that is surely beneath you if you have a Phantom. Unfortunately, there is one drawback. If you want to open the door, you have to open it manually. And I'm not done with the doors yet. Let's say you're sitting in the driver's seat and your front passenger has gotten out and walked away forgetting to close their door. Well, that's an easy one to solve. That's right, it isn't just the rear doors. You push a little button next to the gauge cluster marked door and you can close either of the front doors as well, automatically of course, so you don't have to pull them shut. And of course, that little trick where you tap the door handle, it also works to close the front door. And I'm not done with the doors even still. When you open the rear door, one of the things you will notice is that there is a Rolls-Royce umbrella in the door. You push a little button and the umbrella is revealed to you. Now, the reason that they've placed it here is under the theory that a chauffeur, or at least a good one, would open the door and also be able to do this in one motion while his rich passenger gets out of the back seat. But enough about the cool features of the doors. It's time to use the doors to actually get inside the car, and specifically in the back seat, where this review is about to go from crazy to truly insane. We will start with the starry headliner. Now, if you've read anything about Rolls-Royces in the last few years, you probably know that they offer you the ability to have a headliner that looks like it has stars in it. In fact, supposedly you can customize it to have the exact star pattern in the sky from the day you were born or from your anniversary or whatever. It is a really cool look, all these little LEDs that make it look like a starry night. Something I didn't know about the starry headliner is you can dim it and brighten it at your will. You push this little star button to dim it and you push it the other way to brighten it, and then you can have the stars go away or come back whenever you want. You can play God, which is sort of like what having a Phantom is all about. Another interesting item in the backseat of this car is the sunshades. Now, in the backseat of most luxury cars, there's a little sunshade. You push a button and this little mesh thing comes up in the windows and it blocks out a lot of the sun, and I always talk about it in my videos. This thing takes everything much, much further than that. This car has sunshades, but they're actual blackout curtains. You push a little button on the door and they all can close, and it doesn't just get darker back here, it gets completely dark, and you can totally drown out anybody on the outside from even looking at you. And of course, the rear passenger on the passenger side can control the sunshade on the driver's side and vice versa, so that regardless of which seat you're sitting in, you can completely black out the rear of the car so you don't have to come in contact with any of the peasants in the outside world. Oh, and by the way, these rear blackout sunshades, yeah, that's a $7,700 option, one that I think some chauffeured passengers would tell you is well worth it. Now, speaking of door controls, another interesting one in this car is the climate controls. This car has 4-zone climate controls, one for each main seat. And in this car, they're on the door. You reach over to the door and you can turn on, for example, your air conditioning or your heating, and then it will start blowing out the vents in the back. One interesting thing I find about the door climate controls is the little dial that controls the amount of air coming out of the climate vents. It doesn't just say 1, 2, 3, 4, show a picture of the air increasing. Instead, it says soft, medium, high, max, to sort of make it a classier experience when you're turning up your air in back. Next up, you climb into the back seat of this thing, and at first glance you might be thinking, really? Is this all there is? There's no center controls, there's no rear screens back here. This is a $540,000 car. But you're mistaken. I will start with the picnic tables. You push a little silver button on the back of one of the front seats, and then the picnic tables automatically retract so that you could use them to have a picnic or to use as a laptop rest if you're driving along trying to conduct business. But it doesn't stop there, of course. You want to know where those center controls are? Well, you just drop this center console and then you push this silver button and the center controls are presented to you. Note, by the way, before I get into that you don't just open up this lid. Instead, you push the button and then the lid opens ever so quietly, and then there are your center controls. And if you want those rear screens to appear, well, you've got them. Just press L or R in the center controls depending on which screen you want, and then it appears automatically from the back of the front seat. And check this out, let's say you're done with your screen, you want to put it away and just sit back here. Well, you just push the same silver button you did to get the picnic table out, and the screen and the picnic table retract automatically back into the front seat. It's insane. You thought the doors were crazy because they automatically closed for you? This car, you don't even have to open and close your own rear picnic tables. But let's not put up those screens just yet, because there is oh so much more to cover. For example, if you're sitting back here and you want the driver to go somewhere else, you can pull up the navigation system on these rear screens. You can find a destination and then it shows up on the center screen in the front, and then the driver goes to that destination. So you can be in control of the navigation. Of course, you can also be in control of the stereo. You can go into the radio controls, you can choose the station, the song, the media type, everything from back here. Here's the interesting thing. If you want to change the volume, it's little buttons next to where the door closer button is, right next to the rear window. There's a volume plus and a volume minus button. You press them and they change the volume. It's an odd placement. Some interesting items on those rear screens. How about the fact that there's not only a setting for heated seats, there's a little button in the door. You push it, the heated seats turn on, but you can go into the screens and configure your heated armrests to come on when your heated seat is on. I'm serious. So you can be sitting there getting your butt and back heated, and also your arms as you drive down the road. And then there's the massage function. Of course, there's a massage function. That's not all that surprising, but just look at how many different options you have when getting a massage. Mind you, you're sitting in an automotive seat. You can choose between all these different massage items. That's what you get when you spend $544,000. And of course, you can do more than that with the rear screens when you're sitting back here. For example, you can check like the trip info. You can check the fuel economy. You can check the range, how fast the driver is going. You can really sit back here and police him. Jeeves, don't you think you only have 37 miles of range left? Don't you think maybe it's time to go to a filling station? And then of course, Jeeves would fill up while you sit back here in darkened bliss. You can also check The owner's manual. Take a look at this. You can go into the owner's manual from the back seat using a screen, and you can just sort of browse through the owner's manual and see what's going on. You can also check out the wonderful Rolls-Royce owner's manual animations, one of which, well, I'll let you take a look at.
Various light controllers optimally adapt your vehicle's headlamp light to an extremely broad range of road situations.
Ah, that's something that no one is ever going to watch. Anyway, there are many other interesting things back here beyond what's in those screens. For example, when you climb into the rear of this car, one of the things you will notice, if not right away, then eventually, is there's no plastic back here. None. Everything is leather or some other incredibly high quality material, aluminum. Even in the center console, the storage area that no one will ever use or look at is lined with like felt to make sure that anything you put in there doesn't rattle around and cause obnoxious noises. Everything is the highest quality. Other examples of their attention to detail, obviously you have a rear armrest in the middle between the two rear seats, but check this out, there's also a rear armrest over on the other side between the seat and the door. Very few cars have that, but the ones that have the highest attention to detail, well, they do. Of course, that rear armrest is finished in leather and beautifully stitched. Another crazy piece of attention to detail, when you're back here and you're controlling your screen, your navigation system or whatever, the little control is a wheel, but the logo inside is the Spirit of Ecstasy, and it always stays pointed up, just like those weighted RR logos on the actual wheels of the car themselves. And then we must move on to the floor, and specifically the floor mats, which are just beautiful. They're made of this incredibly wonderful thick carpeting that just feels so fluffy and nice, and they're better than any sheets or pillows I have at my house, and yet this is what Rolls-Royce owners use to put their feet on. Also incredible on the floor of this car is the rear floor air conditioning vent. This is something that no one will ever really notice or see, but if you move the seats all the way forward, you can see it. They finished it completely in aluminum. They could have cheaped out, made this plastic, save $40 a car, but well, you just don't do that when you're Rolls-Royce. Moving back up, I want you to take a look at the seats, and specifically the top of the seats, that headrest. It's not just a headrest, it's like a pillow, and it's plush, and it's oh so wonderfully soft. And next to that crazy headrest pillow, there is a mirror back there with little contour lines in it to look cool. I have no idea why that's there, but it is there, so you can look at yourself. Naturally, that is not the only mirror in the back of this car. One also drops from the roof, and it's about the nicest roof drop mirror I've ever seen, so you can look at yourself from a different angle. And of course, the other seat also has that, so there are 4 mirrors in the back of the Rolls-Royce Phantom. One other thing I forgot to mention that I should, this car has a refrigerator. You can store a bottle of your favorite wine or champagne in it, of course, and you can turn it on. There are 2 different cooling settings because, of course, there are. The car also comes with these wonderful glasses that you can use in order to toast to your wealth. When you have the center console dropped, you can also open up the cup holders, which are, of course, branded with the Rolls-Royce logo, just to remind you that you're not in some crappy Mercedes-Benz. Next, we move on to the front seat, where there is, of course, another long list of crazy luxury features and gadgets. I'm going to start with the infotainment screen itself. Take a look at this. The infotainment screen, as you can see, is just sort of sitting there, and it looks like it's fixed in place. But when you shut the door and lock the car, the infotainment screen disappears into the dashboard. It's so bizarre. When you unlock the car and walk towards it to get started again, the infotainment screen pops back up. I suspect most Phantom owners don't even realize their infotainment screen goes away when they're not around their car, but it does. Next up, we move on to maybe the only disappointment of the entire car, and that would be the gear lever, which is this little dinky, tiny little gear lever that feels kind of cheap and pathetic. And you're driving a $544,000 twin-turbo V12 car, you just feel like you should be using something a little more substantial to put it in gear. Next up, another kind of cool thing is the infotainment system controls. You can see they're right here in the middle like they are in most cars, but maybe I'm an old person and there's just too much going on in here and I'm getting flustered. Well, I can just put them away. Now the infotainment system controls are gone, and if I want to bring them back out again, I can just push it and they pop back out. You rarely find a car with retractable infotainment system controls, but the Phantom is that car. Next up, moving on to the door panel, take a look at the mirror controls, and specifically look at the joystick for the mirror controls. Usually it's some plastic little part, even in nice cars, but in this thing it's this aluminum, very expensive looking item that moves your mirrors back and forth where you want them to go. And speaking of expensive items, take a look at the headlight switch. It isn't just a little plastic dial you turn. In this car, it's aluminum, it looks really nice, and I wish you could feel it. It has way too much weight to it to just be a regular headlight switch, but in fact it is. Next up, we move on to the gauges, and if you look at the gauges, you can see that it's become a screen. Like in a lot of other cars, it's not just traditional old-fashioned gauges and dials. One interesting item is the tachometer, which is a gauge that looks like it's going from 0 to 100 and appears to be maxed out, like the car is all the way at 100, whatever that means, RPM. Actually, that's the power reserve dial. Instead of your traditional tachometer that shows engine revs, it shows how much power you have remaining. So when the car is sitting, it's at 100%, but as I rev the accelerator, you can see that it increases a little bit, or decreases really, to show that I have less power in reserve. Presumably if you were all the way foot on the floor and it was using every last bit of the engine, it would be at 0. Speaking of stuff that looks and feels way too expensive, I want to draw your attention to the climate control dials, which are insane. Take a look at this. The climate control dials are aluminum and this piano black trim. That's normal, but they are also leather wrapped. This car is so expensive, it has leather-wrapped climate control dials. That's the level we're on with the Phantom. And speaking of the climate control, some interesting things worth noting down here. The dial to change the temperature, in this car it's still this old school Rolls-Royce dial. Instead of like adjusting to a certain degree, it's this blue and red slider, and you just change it for more cold or more heat. It's a very old-fashioned dial, but Rolls-Royce has been using it forever, although obviously it's been modernized and improved over the years. Also interesting, if you take a look in the passenger side, you will see that there is a glove box with a wonderful aluminum handle. Very nice. There's also above that and below the gallery another leather pad. Is the airbag in there? No, that's another glove box, and it's operated automatically. You push a little button in the center and then it opens for you, again, so you don't have to waste any energy opening glove boxes. Next up, moving on to the infotainment system, there are a couple of interesting quirks in here. One is the ability to record voice memos. I guess you're driving down the street, you want to record something so you remember it later, and you can record a voice memo in this car. For example,
no one will ever use this feature.
also interesting in the infotainment system is the points of interest item in the navigation system settings. You can set the system to alert you if you're approaching certain points of interest. Interestingly, the points of interest aren't the same as the ones that you and I, non-Rolls-Royce owners, would want to know about. If you go into recreation, it can alert you when you're approaching various sporting events, but not like baseball or football or the ones that we'd be into. Instead, you get boating and golfing and health and fitness centers and winter sports. There's also a tab at the bottom for others, and that's where it shows a picture of a guy playing baseball. For Rolls-Royce owners, baseball is an other sport compared to winter sports and, of course, boating. One other item I like in the navigation system settings is that you can use the system to avoid toll roads or ferries and that sort of thing. That's pretty standard, but you can also use the system to avoid certain areas. So, for example, if you don't want to drive your precious Rolls-Royce through an area you deem bad with houses that only cost $1 million, you can just mark those areas out in the infotainment system, and then it will avoid them so you never have to drive through them again and see how those people live. Other interesting items in the infotainment system, one of my favorites is the speed warning. This is pretty common in German cars. You set a speed warning at like 80 miles an hour, and then it beeps to let you know you're going that fast so you can kind of back off on the highway. This car gives you a speed warning at any speed from 4 to 162. So if you're driving along, you want to be alerted when you go above 4 miles an hour, it can beep at you and let you know, hey, you're going above 4, you might want to cool it. I also absolutely love the interior lighting options in this car. Now, I've done a lot of these car views where you go into the interior lighting and you can configure it to be any color, purple, red, blue, and various shades of all these colors. A lot of cars have those options. This car, you go into interior lighting, you want to change the color, and you're given only 2 options: warm white and cool white. That's all you get. Rolls-Royce has a certain look they want to project, and I guess letting you choose fuchsia doesn't really go with that look. Next up, we move on to the interesting quirks on the outside of the Phantom. I'm going to start in back with the tail lights. They're not all that unusual. They look a lot like the tail lights on the prior generation Phantom. One interesting thing is they have the little RR logo inside of them, and when you put on the turn signal, the little RR logo part is the part that lights up, reminding you with each click that you're following a Rolls-Royce. Another interesting exterior item, you can raise the Phantom. You can raise up the suspension for if you want to take your Phantom off-roading. No, I'm just kidding. Apparently they've developed this feature for emerging markets where the roads aren't as good, like for example India or other Asian markets or Massachusetts. Anyway, you push a little button inside and then, well, I think I'm going to speed this part up. Now look at this, there's like 3 more inches of ground clearance under here than there was when it was in its lowest mode, which I had it in before. It really looks like some sort of off-roader Phantom. Another interesting thing about the raising and lowering is the button inside to raise and lower the Phantom has a diagram on it of a Phantom, and this is carried through to various other places. For example, the switch to open the trunk on the driver's door panel has the unmistakable rear roofline of the Phantom, and even the traction control warning light to let you know you've turned off the traction control or it's active, that has the rear end of a Phantom sort of slipping on the road. You will also find the Phantom's outline on the power trunk closer button, the button that you come back here and press in order to close the trunk. And since I'm back here, we might as well talk about a couple of other interesting trunk-related items. For example, the whole trunk is of course carpeted in this lovely black carpeting. I would expect no less. And beyond that, this car's attention to detail is carried through to everything. For example, this little panel on the side of the trunk, no one's ever going to use it. It's to get to like the fuse box or something. Even it has a little leather strap stitched, and the base is aluminum. No one will ever touch that or use it, but it's there and it looks good. Now, speaking of the Phantom, there are a couple of interesting items I have here in this O'Hara coach bag that would be included if you purchase the Phantom. One is inside this little box. You open this box and you discover another box. You open that box and you get another box, and if you open that box, you will see a pen. Now that, however, is not my favorite one of these little Phantom extras that you get. Here is another box. You open it up, you get a box, you open it up, and you get a USB stick. And not just any USB stick, but I wish you could feel this. It's the heaviest USB I ever felt. Of course, it's also shaped like the Rolls-Royce Wraith. It's a very beautiful USB stick. And finally, we move under the hood and you can see the Rolls-Royce 6 3/4 liter V12 in all its beauty. And on top of it, there is a plastic engine cover, just like in pretty much every other car. A couple of interesting things under here. One is that it says Phantom, hand-built in Goodwood, England, on a little plaque under the hood. Interestingly, that's the only place in the entire car where it actually says the word Phantom. You're just supposed to know. I also like the oil cap. Take a close look and you can see the Rolls-Royce logo on it, which probably quadruples the price of that oil cap compared to a regular plastic one. So those are the insane quirks and features of the new Phantom. But now it's time to drive it, because a luxury car isn't only about gadgets and upholstery and quirks and features. It's also about driving down the road and drowning out the sound of everyone else. All right, driving the Phantom. Oh, it is so nice in here. One of the things I realized just even a few minutes ago when I was filming that construction site next to me, you probably heard in some of the clips, when you shut the doors, you don't hear a thing. And so now as I drive down the road, you don't hear a thing. And oh, it is just so nice. And you know what? That's right. That's right. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm going to keep that open so I can see. It's just wafting along. Oh, these roads are just completely, the pavement, it's not the best, and it just swallows it up. The Phantom does not care. This is like climbing into a hot tub after like a long hike. That's what this car is. It's like the automotive equivalent of that. It's just incredible. You literally hear nothing. I have the climate control on, so you can hear a little bit of the fans and that kind of thing. That's pretty standard. But I can't hear a thing going on outside. I mean, there might be cars out there, there might be poorer people out there, but I don't hear them. It is actually crazy. These cars are going by and you don't even hear the wind rush. You know, you always hear when a car goes, you know, you don't hear that at all. Nothing. You hear nothing. Here's these lane bumps. Oh, they're just almost completely removed. I've rented a pickup truck while I'm here and you can feel them like crazy. It's just so stately. It's also tall. We're behind a 4Runner and it's actually surprising. It really feels like, you know, just from the seating position, it really feels tall. It's not a small car, this one. Everything else you don't really care that much about. I mean, handling and steering and acceleration, I mean, you can buy any number of cars that are more focused on that than this one. And this one makes no bones about the fact that that's not its primary target in life. That's not the thing. You buy this car, that's not what you're focused on. You're focused on just literally removing yourself from the world around you. And it does that. And it does that masterfully. Oh, and my foot, I can feel, is sort of resting on this overstuffed floor mat. And the only things I hear are the things making me more comfortable, the cooled seat and the climate control. I look out over the Spirit of Ecstasy and I'm reminded that I'm better than all these people. So quiet and so even-tempered and so wonderfully serene. It is so serene. And yes, there is body roll when you're turning, and the steering is so pathetically light. And in a normal car, I would say that's a flaw, but in this car, that's the point. All right. Oh my God. I was absolutely not expecting that. I looked up the 0 to 60 time before I came here, and I knew it was going to be quick, but I've kind of lulled myself into serenity, and it was a long day of filming, and that's ridiculous. That's the stupidest thing I've ever felt in any car ever. I can't believe that it feels like that. I can't believe that this car is that big and it moves that fast. I mean, you kind of know it. It's a twin-turbo V12, right? But it's like the Trackhawk. You just don't think you're going to be going that fast in a vehicle this large, and then suddenly you're going double the speed limit. In the end, this is the optimal luxury car. It's the most luxury of luxury cars, and it behaves exactly like you would hope it does, given the price point and given everything you've ever heard. Oh, Rolls-Royce, you've heard in movies and TV and everything. You get behind the wheel, and it does it all. And so that's the 2018 Rolls-Royce Phantom. This thing is absolutely incredible. But then again, it had better be, considering the sticker price on this one is $544,000. Still, I think this is the most luxurious car in the world. And now that you've seen this video, I suspect you'll agree. And now it's time to give it a Doug score. Starting with the weekend categories and styling, the Phantom is nice, stately, not necessarily breathtakingly attractive, and it gets a 6 out of 10. Acceleration 0 to 60 is 5.1 seconds, and it gets a 5 out of 10. Handling is average, but if you focus on this, you're missing the point. It gets a 5 out of 10. Cool factor is high. Every time I see a Phantom on the street, I crane my neck to see who's driving, and I know most other people have a similar reaction. It gets an 8 out of 10. Finally, there's importance, and even though Rolls will make a bunch of these, it's still the brand new flagship model, and it gets a 7 out of 10, bringing the total weekend score to 31 out of 50. Daily categories next. Starting with features, the Phantom easily earns a 10 out of 10. Comfort is another obvious one. The Phantom sets the standard here and receives only the third 10 I've ever given out, all 3 to Rolls-Royces. Quality is truly amazing, and it'd get a perfect score, except I'd be a bit concerned about long-term reliability. It gets a 9 out of 10. Practicality is good. It has a huge trunk with 19 cubic feet of cargo space, which earns it a 5. The huge rear seat should bump up that score, but bad fuel economy keeps it at a 5 out of 10. Finally, there's value. The Phantom depreciates massively, and it'll lose a lot of value. Usually that means a low score here, but the simple truth is there's no other car that delivers this experience. So you can't really drop the value score very low because there's no alternative you can recommend with better value. It gets a 5 out of 10 for a total daily score of 39 out of 50, one of the all-time best. Add it up, and the Doug score is an amazing 70 out of 100, which places the Phantom top among high-end luxury cars. No surprise, because, well, it's the best high-end luxury car ever.
Mr. DeMuro.
Where's my umbrella?
But sir, it's not raining.
Get my umbrella!